happy to be joined right now by Keith Maib of Mackinac Partners, Managing Director and Co-Head of Financial Restructuring Transactions. Thank you so much for being here today.
Glad to be here, always.
Tell us a little bit about Mackinac.
Well, we're a boutique financial advisory firm. Our focus is on providing primarily interim management and advisory services to companies that are experiencing significant financial distress. We have offices in Michigan, Dallas, Texas, Austin, Texas, and Southern California, and we're about 20 folks, and been very active in the space. So.
Well, let's see. What is there to talk about? Oh, yeah, there's that whole issue with falling oil prices. Do you see this as a ripple or a tsunami?
You know, I think the opinions differ, and I think you have to break it down into the sectors. I think, generally speaking, it's going to have a profound effect on the restructuring businesses and advisory work over the next, call it 12 to 18 months, maybe as much as 3 years. You know, starting today with the producers that, you know, are having trouble meeting liquidity needs, you know, going on into the servicing companies that, you know, you don't have a servicing need if you don't have a producing well, right? And then going on from there to the downstream transportation companies and things of that nature. So I think this is a sector that's going to work itself out over a fairly long period of time.
So what are the challenges you see in advising these firms right now?
Well, the first one, and it's the same with all companies, it's liquidity issues. And liquidity issues driven by, you know, where they are with their derivative contracts. And some of these folks are hedged and have, you know, sort of longer running derivatives that run out through the end of this year. And quite frankly, those derivative contracts for the producing companies are going to protect them. The counterparties on the other side, you know, usually large investors, you know, can probably experience the pain of the losses on those derivative contracts. So I think you've got those issues, and I think you've also got, you know, fundamentally, you know, as you do with all these companies, management issues, right? So as we've seen in many of the downturns in the oil and gas cycle, we've also seen obviously in the real estate cycle, that when liquidity starts, you know, driving, you know, behavior and the lack of liquidity, sometimes you get bad acts on the part of management. And I think, you know, creditors and lenders and financial capital providers have to be sensitive to those issues as well.
Now, those of you in the know knew this was going to be happening, but did you know that it would be happening this soon and that the drop would be this much?
No, nobody projected that you'd go from $105 a barrel to, you know, it bounced at 40 and currently hanging in the high 40s, low 50s. Nobody anticipated that sort of dramatic drop around pricing.
So the consumers are loving this, except for we were talking earlier about those people living in Texas who are
Right.
taking a hard hit right now. So when do you see a stabilization really occurring?
Man, it's everybody's crystal ball.
Yeah.
A lot of it has to do with how much the oil pricing recovers and how much capital comes in to provide the liquidity to allow stabilization. You know, it's impossible to believe, and I don't believe, that this is all driven by supply and demand curves, right? You know, clearly we're at the highest level of supply, you know, stockpiled in the last 80 years, right? But that's not driving a 70% decline
Right.
in price. So capital and pricing and what happens in the markets, how banks react over the next 6 months as credit resets, you know, covenant resets come through and the like, all of that I think is going to determine really how and when stabilization sort of takes effect.
So there is
a lot to see. There's a lot to still see.
And there's no crystal ball.
And in this one, I don't think there's much of a crystal ball. I think all of us are just sort of hanging on to, you know, April is going to be a big date with the covenant resets and valuation resets. You know, those are probably going to drive valuations in the $60 to $65 a barrel because it's a floating average. You know, many companies will probably be able to sustain that. Some won't. And then you go, you know, 3 to 6 months later with the subsequent resets. Then you're going to see, if you don't have a recovery from current prices, you know, at $40 and $50 a barrel, then you're going to see some real liquidity issues.
Wow. Incredible insight. Thank you so much for joining us, Keith.
Happy to. Thank
Good
you
to
very
see
much.
you again.
Thank you.